After Brexit, Great Britain wants to decide for itself who is allowed into the country. For asylum seekers, it should often mean final destination Rwanda. Ironically, a European court throws London initially a spanner in the works. There are around 6,600 kilometers between the London government district of Westminster and Kigali, the capital of Rwanda. That's how much distance the British government wants to put between itself and those asylum seekers who entered Britain illegally. A pact with the East African country, which is to take in the refugees in return for appropriate payments, is the last hope of Boris Johnson's Conservative government, who promised his voters with Brexit that they would regain control of their own borders. We all saw how that worked. According to plans by the British government, the first plane with asylum seekers on board should have taken off for Rwanda on Tuesday. London also hopes this will act as a deterrent to discourage other people seeking help, many of whom come from Iran, Iraq or Eritrea, from fleeing to the UK. British Home Secretary Priti Patel announced her pact on Rwanda in the spring. The UN refugee agency UNHCR and many others reacted outraged and pointed out that the British could not buy their way out of their obligation to take in those seeking help. Rwandan opposition politician and former presidential candidate Frank Habineza took a similar view. The rich countries should not shift their obligations toward refugees to third countries just because they have the money to exert influence and get their way. That's what he criticized. The small state on the Great Lakes is already one of the most densely populated countries in Africa, with conflicts over land ownership and raw materials. Habineza fears that taking in migrants from Great Britain will exacerbate the problems. Several refugee organizations and a border guards union have sued the UK government's plan on behalf of those affected. Raza Hussain, lawyer for the plaintiffs, said at a hearing in London on Friday that there was no evidence that those affected could expect a secure asylum procedure in Rwanda. In the first instance, the government received the green light for the flight on Friday evening. An appeals court upheld the verdict on Monday. According to reports, however, the number of passengers planned had dwindled shortly beforehand. And according to the BBC, only a good 10 asylum seekers should be flown out, or were supposed to be flown out, with many other appeals are said to have been successful. This Rwanda deal is absolutely wrong. That's what United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees Filippo Grandi said in Geneva on Monday. It should not be the case that a country that has the necessary funds for asylum clarifications outsources such examinations. Rwanda does not have the structures for this and has asked the UN Refugee Agency for help, said Grandi. This makes my job all the more difficult, said Grandi. He said that directly to Patel, by the way. Many countries in Africa and elsewhere are taking in refugees. What should I tell you if a rich country sends refugees abroad? This plan sets a disastrous precedent, said Grandi. The human rights organization Human Rights Watch pointed to human rights violations in Rwanda, which is ruled with a strict hand by longtime President Paul Kagame. Even heir to the throne Prince Charles, who will soon be traveling to Rwanda for a Commonwealth event, is said to have expressed his displeasure, in private conversations, and described the British government plans as terrifying. That's what the Times reported on Saturday, citing insider sources. When asked by the newspaper at his residence Clarence House, the prince said he was politically neutral, but did not deny the statement. The British Home Office, on the other hand, is convinced that it is doing the right thing. There is great public interest in carrying out these deportations as planned. That's what the ministry's lawyer said in a statement. Migration expert Jonathan Portes is not convinced. Britons are currently concerned about the cost of living crisis and other issues. Migration comes very far down the list. But how is Rwanda preparing for the new arrivals? In May, the government presented the future housing for the asylum seekers. A newly renovated hotel with a pool, for example, and a row of houses that had previously housed survivors of the 1994 genocide. The previous residents of the pretty little houses with red tile roofs had looked for a new place to live. Rwanda initially received £120 million from Great Britain, as well as money for food and training, because the refugees will have the right to work in Rwanda. This triggers mixed feelings in Kigali. Some believe that the refugees will be unwelcome competition on the job market, while others see them as foreign exchange earners and potential customers or business partners. Bugi Reinfura Rachit, who runs a small supermarket in the Gazabo district where the refugees are housed, is looking forward to the arrivals. The people will bring money into our economy, he is certain. I think they will support me as a customer of my business. I hope he's right in that case, whenever they come. Another local resident sees problems looming. The newcomers are not familiar with the Rwandan culture, do not speak the language, and their integration will be difficult. Others not only criticize the refugee deal, but fear a silence when it comes to criticism of human rights violations in Rwanda itself. Great Britain is one of the major donor countries, and with the agreement, not only the kingdom may have bought its freedom from unwanted refugees, but also Rwanda from previously expressed criticism. That's what Ntakandi Benjamin said. This kind of agreement gives the government a kind of protection against being held responsible. Despite a momentous defeat in court, the British government wants to stick to its controversial plan to fly asylum seekers of different nationalities to Rwanda. We will not be deterred from doing the right thing and protecting our nation's borders, said Home Secretary Priti Patel on Tuesday evening, after the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg initially thwarted the government's plans with a rare intervention. Patel added that they are already working on preparing for the next flight. I'm disappointed that last-minute lawsuits and litigation prevented today's flight from taking off, said the Home Secretary. It is very surprising that the European Court of Human Rights has intervened after British courts had previously ruled differently. With the flight planned for late Tuesday evening, London wanted to herald its controversial Rwanda Pact, with which the Conservative government wants to deter other people seeking protection from entering the UK. The agreement provides that those seeking protection who have illegally entered Great Britain, and that's regardless of their nationality or origin, are brought to the East African country and given the opportunity to apply for asylum there, in return, as I said, for the payments from the British government. Even if they are recognized as refugees there should never be a return to Great Britain. The United Nations and many I named before see this as a breach of international law and a dangerous precedent. According to media reports, as I said, even Prince Charles, who never comments on daily politics, has expressed that he's appalled about the plans. As I said, British courts basically gave the flight the green light, but many individual lawsuits were successful, which is why the number of passengers scheduled for Tuesday evening was falling anyway on the days before. In the hours before the scheduled departure, the extraordinary intervention of the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg then ensured that the number of people leaving the country finally fell to zero, and the flight was cancelled completely. The decision of Strasbourg Court set off a chain reaction, so to speak. Those who remained were able to refer to the decision and initially successfully prevent their own departure. In just over an hour, the plan for the first Rwanda flight collapsed like a house of cards. That's the way BBC correspondent Dominic Kashiani commented on this decision. In a so-called interim measure or intervention, Strasbourg had asked the British authorities to take an Iraqi asylum seeker who was originally supposed to be on board out of the country at the earliest 3 weeks after a final decision in this ongoing proceedings in Great Britain. According to the court, interim measures are binding and are only imposed rarely, and when there is an imminent risk of irreparable damage. The European Court of Human Rights is part of the Council of Europe, so not the European Union, and is therefore also responsible for Great Britain. The bodies that are independent of the European Union, as I said, work together to protect human rights in the 46 member states. So far, the Strasbourg Court has also had the last word in Great Britain on such issues. The latest decision is likely to fuel debate as to whether this should remain the case. Asked about this, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson indicated in an interview on Tuesday that changes could not be ruled out. Yeah, as he always does. Changing the law, getting out of all organizations that prevent him from doing whatever he likes to keep his job. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.